Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna, and if you clicked on this video, chances are you are either thinking about applying to Epik or you have already and you're getting ready for your interview, to which congrats, that's a huge deal. Not everyone makes it to this stage, but I did say that I wanted to touch upon the interview because I know a million people have like so many questions on this, and I wanted to give as much help as I possibly can because it is definitely scary. And if you've never gone through a super serious interview or even kind of like don't really know what to expect, I just wanted to give you guys a little heads up, especially because I find that each intake there is like a certain set of questions that tend to be repeated and asked. At least that's my interpretation of the data that we, myself and a few of my friends have been collecting. But let's kind of just jump into it so I'm not spending too long here rambling on. So if you clicked on this video, then you might have already watched my prior video, which is my whole timeline of the application process. So if you didn't, you might want to click on it now, so that way you have a better idea of like the timeline and just how long it takes, especially if you're going direct versus a recruiter. I am going through a recruiter. Korean Horizons is my recruiter and they are amazing. It's like a one-man show and he is just top-notch, gets back to you super quickly, so I highly suggest you look them or him up just to get an idea of what a recruiter can help you with and what they're like, if that's something that you want. So as I mentioned in my prior video, if you are applying directly, then you have a little bit of a faster timeline, but because I'm going through a recruiter, I had to wait about I want to say like a month before I found out about my interview. So if you're going direct, your interview like slot you get to pick out and you get an email. And so you get direct access to Epik versus a recruiter. You just you send in your preferences and then your recruiter schedules your interview for you. You don't get options the way that the direct people do. So keep that in mind, and they do pick within your range of availabilities. So they're not going to pick some time that like you obviously can't do. They do try to stick to that, and you get this email and then you just have to confirm it. And for me, I got my email on like September, I want to say like 25th, so roughly about a week before my actual interview. My interview was scheduled for October 1st at 9:20 a.m. Korean Standard Time, which translates to Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, September 30th at 9:20 p.m. I'm sorry, 8:20. It was 8:20 p.m. So that was when my interview was, and I said this before in my last video, but I was lucky enough to be one of the first 11 of the like people who applied to recruiters to get an interview, which like is still mind-blowing to me. Like I don't really understand how that happened, but still super grateful about it. So I think I was like the first interview of the recruiting stage because I was so early in the morning on like October 1st. So that wasn't terrifying at all. But I will say that if you are going through a recruiter, they do a practice interview with you, or at least mine did. They ask you just common questions and help you kind of reframe your thought process on it. And so my recruiter, Korean Horizons, they did it through Skype. Now we just did on audio. I did have the video up so I could practice just looking at the camera. If that is one thing I have to say, it's that practice looking at the camera. So it's going to be a tendency to like, so I have my laptop here because I have some of the questions written down. So your tendency is going to want to be to look at like yourself, but I highly suggest you look at your camera and just like ignore yourself, because you want to be able to be making that direct eye contact, if that makes any sense. So we practiced that, and he helped me kind of rethink a lot of my questions, and I don't necessarily want to give the exact tips he gave me just because I don't know if that's just particular to Korean Horizons, and I don't really want to like give away too many things, but I will say that you're gonna want to like memorize it, and I'm gonna tell you don't don't memorize your answers. Memorize or have in, you know, in your notes somewhere that you want, like, top things you want to hit. But I wouldn't memorize it because it could come off as super robotic and you're not going to be able to show like your true self, which is what the whole interview is about, is to be able to show your true self and just kind of give them a feel of your personality. That doesn't mean you have to be super bubbly. It doesn't mean you have to, you know, put on a show, because you definitely want to be yourself. But I will say that, you know, you want to shine through. So if you're memorizing your answers, sure, they might sound super professional and super awesome, but you're not going to get those nuances that you get when you like just speak from the heart, essentially. So yeah, so I highly suggest, yes, go over some questions, but also, you know, don't memorize your answers because, like I said, you can quickly come off as super robotic. Some other tips, because I wrote them down here, is just to like breathe before your interview. It's so easy to get like super just like nervous and anxious, and it can be intimidating because you don't even know who's interviewing you until like 5 minutes before, which is what happened to me. And I will say this, now I don't know if this is 100% true, but the main people, the coordinators of Epik, they interview the direct applicants. So that's like, so if you like ever emailed Epik, like Jeffrey's like the main email dude, so he typically handles the direct applicants, versus a lot of the people who had recruiters kind of got people who weren't the main folks, which is like, it makes sense if you think about it, because like if the main recruiters from Epik are working with those who have recruiters already, it's kind of like they're not using their time wisely, versus just having someone who's trained to interview you go through it, because your recruiter is going to represent you regardless. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind. Like, don't get freaked out if you get someone that you've never heard of before, because if you join like a couch ad or if you join the Facebook group, you hear like common interviewer names thrown around, and then when you don't get one, you're like, okay, like, who are you? How do I handle this? Just, you know, keep that in mind. So what happened for my interview, like I said, we had a practice interview and we went over some questions, and I'm gonna share the questions with you that that are just very typical, especially in this intake, but we did that. And then on Sunday, I made sure that I had my application printed out. Make sure you have a hard copy out in front of you, because the interviewer goes through each section with you, just to confirm that everything is true and correct, and then they'll tell you to mark changes, and it's going to be like quick. Like, they're going to be like, oh, section 4-1, is this true? Oh, no, okay, can you change that? And you quickly write notes because they're not going to repeat it at the end. I think you can ask them to repeat it, but I just made sure that I got it on the first go, and I luckily didn't have a lot of changes to make. I only had like 2 or 3, versus people who have to like change lesson plan components. That's a big deal. So definitely have a hard copy out so you can mark it, and then you go and you make your changes. I also had a notepad out. I didn't actually use the notepad like I thought I would, but you never know. I would have a notepad out next to you. Make sure you're dressed professionally, and by professionally I mean like for an interview, because somehow people got confused on how to dress for this. Just like an interview, wear a button down, wear a nice dress. I wore a high neck dress, and I'll insert a picture of my dress somewhere, but that's what I wore, and I cut my makeup minimal, my hair was done, like look nice, even on the bottoms, I would say, because some people are like, oh, but it's at home. I would say be safe, because God forbid you have to get up at some point or something, and you get up and they see like you have boxers on. Like it's just best to be safe than sorry. So make sure you have a full interview razzle dazzle outfit on, and that's what I did. And check your Skype. First, make sure that you confirm that you have the right Skype ID. Just like double check your application, double check your login, because I actually for some reason like mine was mixed up, and that happened to a couple of people. So definitely like confirm that and make sure that you are right, and they will add you about 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit after. Don't freak out if it's like 5 minutes after your interview and no one has added you. It happens. There's lots of technical difficulties that go on as well, so keep that in mind. If like you don't see anyone on the screen or you can't really hear them that well, if it's something super major, they will reschedule you. It's not like one and done. but it's common, it happens. Don't freak out about it. It's normal. So yeah, so about I checked it twice. I checked my internet connection twice because I really wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And you want to make sure your background's like as plain as it can be. So I sat at my desk, and that is like kind of facing here. So yes, they did get to see my bookshelf a little bit, but I like just made sure it was nice and neat, and made sure my bed was done, and that this wall was plain, because I definitely do, I normally, as you may know, have stuff hung up here, but I took it down for the interview. And yeah, you just want to make sure it's as clean and polished as possible. I get not everyone has a plain black, like a plain blank wall, and I don't think it's a major deal. Some people are like, no, you need it, but I had my bookshelf in the back and it was fine. But just make sure it's clean, and that, you know, you're at a professional-esque setting, as professional as it can be in your home. And yeah, that's like pretty much like the whole preparation. I will say that my group was a little bit extra, and we like came up with, like, we had interview chats where we would discuss each question and went over like our answers and compared and contrasted them. But I'm going to go over some of the practice questions, or just common questions that you'll get, so that way you're able to kind of prepare yourself. Was that English? Okay, the first one is why South Korea, why Epik? And that question is pretty self-explanatory. Why do you want to go to Korea? Now, if you're going to say something along the lines of like, K-pop is awesome, or I love K-dramas, or I want an oppa, like, obviously those are not answers you want to say, and you know, everyone has their reasons why they're going, but if that's your main reason, I just definitely wouldn't highlight that, or, you know, consider going, because Korea is a country and it's filled with real people, and you wanna highlight their culture. You wanna highlight why you really want to go. What is it about Korea that's drawing you? Because you could go to China, you could go to Japan, there are Thailand, like there's a million other countries you can go to, so why are you choosing this one? I will say, you know, just do some research on Korea, South Korea, and Epik itself. The second question is usually going to be like, why your preference? So mine is Taejeon, and you know, I spoke about why I'm choosing that province. Now, if you're flexible, you can, you know, just highlight that, but you want to have some like solid reasons why you're picking your location, not just Seoul because it's the one thing you know. So make sure that you do some research. Once again, you're just gonna do some research and you'll be fine. Then it's like, tell me about your degree and how that sets you up for just like Epik or being an English foreign language teacher. I happen to be a teacher, so my degree is pretty aligned with it, and an English major, so like everything's kind of aligned for me. But you know, just find a way to connect it. You can always connect any degree to education, because it's all about just helping people and scaffolding and just guiding and inspiring. So, you know, find a way to tweak your degree to fit it. Another common questions are like involving co-teachers. So obviously when you go teach abroad, you're going to have a co-teacher, a native Korean teacher, and you're the native English teacher. So your co-teacher may or may not use you for a variety of things. So they might just use you to parrot, and so you're just repeating pronunciation, or you could, you know, be doing all the heavy lifting and they're just chilling in the back, you know? You never know. You don't know. And it's just kind of a risk you take. And it's not neither here nor there. It's just a reality. So don't get huffy puffy about it. Just kind of think about, you know, what you would do in those situations. So a lot of people tend to say, you know, try to build rapport and connections with your co-teachers, so that way you can have better communication and work more efficiently to assist the students as much as possible. But it is, you know, an exchange, so maybe they're a little bit nervous about speaking English. You know, a lot of them don't speak it like after they leave college. So they could just be nervous about making a mistake, and that's why they are having you do a lot of the heavy lifting. Or, you know, maybe they just feel like you're not ready to handle a class and they're not giving you enough, you know, control. It could be a variety of reasons, just a language barrier in general, or you didn't outline your expectations of each other. There's a million reasons why, you know, things are the way that they are in those situations, but just try to, you know, remember that they are your superior. So that's like a key word you want to use. They are your superior. You are under them, just like in the hierarchical spectrum, like you are here and they're here. So keep that in mind. And yeah, like I said, there's a variety of co-teacher questions. What else? So what do you know about Korean culture? How would you describe it to your friends is another common one. So once again, research. What do you know about Korean culture aside from K-pop, aside from K-dramas? You can touch upon it because it is a major component of like its whole globalization, and it is, you know, expanding to the West. So there's lots of people who know about it, and they want that. But I wouldn't make it your main source of like information, like going on and on about RM, you know. Just make sure that you are, yeah, that you make sure your answers are professional. You know, tell me about your interests. What sets you apart? A lot of people got thrown by that. I got thrown by it. What sets you apart from other applicants? It's actually a pretty common interview question in general. You know, what makes you special? Why should we hire you? It's just phrased a little bit differently. But that's your time to kind of highlight, you know, those positive traits that I'm sure you all have, that would make you an amazing English foreign language teacher in South Korea for Epik. And it's gonna obviously vary person to person. Someone might be creative, someone might be good with behavior management. There's a million things you could say for that, but just, you know, think about that. Culture shock is another big one. So how are you going to handle culture shock? Like, unless you've lived in South Korea before or you are Korean, there's going to be a huge component of culture shock involved moving abroad, especially to a country that is so homogenous and is very different from America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Like, it's really different there. So just think about like just how you're gonna bring bits of home with you, just connecting with your community, with your co-teachers, and Epik does have an orientation. So there's just a million, yeah. Once again, it's gonna vary. You know, what makes you feel like you're at home. Maybe you've traveled a whole bunch. Maybe you've lived abroad before, just not in South Korea, and you know how to handle it, or you know kind of what to expect. Just, you know, dig into your own. The educational term buzzword is funds of knowledge. You know, dive into your funds of knowledge. Dive into your experiences in your life, and you're gonna find answers for a lot of these questions. You're far more prepared than you really think like you are, and it's just kind of nerve-wracking, which is understandable. But that's kind of like the heavy hitters of it, and so you are scheduled about an hour block time, but rarely does it ever exceed 30 minutes because I don't know if this is, but as I was told, there are other interviews like immediately after you, so they have to have time to like look over your application and then look at the next person's application. So that's already like maybe like 20 minutes out of your hour block. And then if you're a direct applicant, you know, you can ask your questions at the end, and I would have a couple of questions lined up for them. So an example would be, you know, about the timeline of placement, or you know, what are some things that you feel Epik teachers, you know, should know more about before coming, or something like that. You can find a whole bunch on the internet. I didn't have to ask any questions because I have my recruiter for that, and they even said that in my interview. My interviewer was like, I'm sure you have a million questions, but you have a recruiter, so you can direct them to them. So that's kind of it. So my interview lasted about 25 minutes. And that was like going through my application, and my application literally just had like 100% or 2 100% things I had to change, and then I like just really changed like some things, like my not my location preference, but like my time preference to flexible. That was just my personal little thing. But yeah, so some people, you know, it takes about 15 minutes to go through the application. Some people it takes 10. For me, it took maybe 5, and then everything else, like, I got grilled. And it, once again, depends. I find that a lot of people who have teaching experience got a little bit more questions and more, like, challenging questions versus people who have no teaching experience. They got, like, kind of more along the lines of teaching questions, like, why are you becoming a teacher? How do you think you're, what is your teaching philosophy? I got that one too, but that's a common one as well. So, you know, just rely on your TOEFL. Hopefully you've done your TOEFL, have started your TOEFL by this point. And, you know, Google, YouTube, best friends, and I think that's all I got. So, after my interview, it was 25 minutes long, I emailed my recruiter, told him that I thought it went fairly well, even though I secretly didn't. I thought that I, like, bombed it. I honestly thought I bombed it, because there's lots of awkward pauses, which you're not fully expecting, but even though you hear, like, oh, like, they stop a lot, and they may or may not smile, and that doesn't mean that you're tanking. That's just, I think, how Epik interviews. I interviewed at 8:20 p.m., 3 a.m., which is 4 p.m. Korean time. I got my interview, like, congrats, you passed. Email. Yeah, so it took like, what, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, it took 7 hours. It took a whole work day to find out that I passed, even though I was sleeping. So yeah, so for some people it's gonna take a little bit longer. For some people it took like 2 days to find out. The deeper you are in the process, so like October-ish time, the faster you're gonna get your results. They're speeding through in October. So if you're still thinking of applying, apply, because you can get an interview within like 2 days, which is what a lot of people has been going on for a lot of people. Like, they're applying Friday and they have an interview set up for Tuesday type of deal. So yeah, there's still plenty of time if you want to do it for spring and join us. Welcome, it's a great place. And if you are, you know, about to enter the interview process or thinking about applying, best of luck to you. You can do this. And yeah, I hope that answers all your questions about interviews. If not, leave them down below and I'll try my best to answer them. And yeah, I think the next, like, Epik video I'm gonna do is more along the lines of, okay, you've passed your interview, now what? Just because that's a whole other video in itself, like getting your documents ready, your tax forms, visa, and I'm kind of in the middle of doing like tax forms and I have to wait for my visa stuff. So I'm not fully there yet, so it may be a couple of months before I talk about Epik again, but if you guys want, I could do a video on like why South Korea type of deal, let me know. And yeah, I hope that I helped you guys out a little bit, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.